What's going on, it's the Polygon Don, and today I want to show you guys 5 hidden gems for the PlayStation 5, explaining why I think you might want to add them to your collections. There's a 2D action RPG that harkens back to the golden age of Metroidvanias, a spooky survival horror, and an RTS of gigantic proportions, amongst others. So without further ado, let's get into it.
Mutants!
A run-and-gun twin-stick 2D action platformer set in the Warhammer 40,000 universe. Shootas Blood and Teef has bags of charm, a gorgeous, seemingly hand-drawn art style, and very addictive gameplay. You'll be playing as an orc attempting to regain control of an alien world, all told through simple yet very clean animated cutscenes. It's not in any way, shape or form a serious game, nor does it take itself seriously. It's stupid and silly in the best possible way and is underscored by an outrageous heavy metal soundtrack. You'll choose a starting class at the beginning of the game, with the variations being abilities and weapon types. Mine had an ability that engulfed my enemies in flames as I dashed through them, for example, which actually got me out of a few sticky situations. As well as a host of creative and exotic firearms, you'll pick up grenades as you venture through levels, as well as health pickups to keep your run going, while also smacking any pesky humies with melee attacks. It's all very simplistic really, and nothing you haven't seen before if you happen to be a fan of these games. You move from left to right, killing anything that moves and picking up anything that glistens. Defeating enemies grants you with Teef, which is this game's version of currency. These can be spent to buy new weapons, armour and cosmetic items. It's all very standard stuff and doesn't reinvent the wheel at all, but I must say what is here is very well polished and incredibly addictive fun. It also packs a fairly decent amount of difficulty, at least it did for me, mainly the boss fights, which are these often hilarious and always satisfying challenges to overcome. This colourful, chaotic and crazy little game is very lovingly created. You can see it in the animation and hear it in the animated cutscenes.
This is it, boys!
There's humour and silliness at every turn, and quite honestly, was just a bloody enjoyable game to play through. It's not terribly long either, in fact it's quite a short experience, with the main campaign lasting around 4 hours. But with so many different weapon types to experience and the different classes you can choose to play as, there's a lot of replayability here, especially if you want 100% or platinum it. You can play through the game solo, with 4 friends online, or via couch co-op. I played solo, but I can see, just with the nature of the gameplay, it would be hilarious to play through it with a few buddies. So if you do have some mates coming over for an evening, I can see this being an absolute blast and is well worth considering for that night's entertainment.
For the first time, the great nations of the world faced each other with weapons that could kill dozens, hundreds with a single blow.
Iron Harvest, developed by King Art Games and published by Deep Silver, is a real-time strategy game set in 1920+, an alternate history universe created by Jacob Brzezowski and popularised by the board game Scythe. The game has been described as diesel punk mecha, and its visuals and world building are just phenomenal. The story focuses on the conflict between 3 nations in Central and Eastern Europe: Polania, Rusviet and Saxony, which is basically Poland, Russia and Germany. Selecting your faction at the start of the game will give you that particular nation's perspective. Selecting Polania, for example, you'll play as a young girl named Anna Kos, whose country has been occupied by the Rusviet army after a truce was signed with Saxony to end a massive war in which Anna's brother was killed. However, even with a so-called truce, Rusviet troops invade Anna's village looking for a scientist with a prosthetic arm that has the ability to disable mechs. A slaughter occurs and many civilians die, including those close to Anna. Enraged and wanting to avenge her loved ones, Anna joins the resistance to reclaim her country. And this is where things get interesting. Gameplay is your classic real-time strategy affair. building camps to train more units, exploring the map for resources to upgrade your camp so that you can build bigger and better units, etc, etc, all while fending off enemy encounters on the road and those that are targeting your bases. After learning the ropes with predominantly infantry units like grenadiers, foot soldiers and medics for example, you get access to mechs, and these are just fantastically designed and dramatically change up the gameplay. Being cutting edge technology, they still look like they could have feasibly existed in this time and are easily the highlights and strength of your army. The game is vast and extensive, and the levels or missions are so well thought out too and always keep things interesting. One mission early on was a particular highlight for me, where you had to capture and steal an entire train from behind enemy lines, then deliver it and its cargo of life-saving supplies to a Polanian village. You control the train and your army, having to regularly select a unit to change the direction of the train tracks so that you can reach your destination, all while the opposing army's mechs are tracking you down to reclaim it. It's just all round top tier for me, this game. The story, the gameplay, the presentation. I mean seriously, some of the destruction mechanics in this game are nothing short of stunning. Now I do have to add the fact that I haven't touched the multiplayer aspects of the game. I've only played the single player campaign, and even within that I haven't played through as all the various factions. As I said previously, this game is massive and has a lot to offer, but even just playing through as Polania for example, it still feels as though you've had a complete experience, and you do get a real sense that this game is a little bit special. I remember reviewers at the time of release citing it as the true return to form the RTS genre fandom was crying out for. I'm no expert, but if my 2 pence are worth anything, I haven't been hooked on an RTS like this since Command & Conquer Red Alert, which I played on a beige compact Despro PC back in the late 90s. Chances are if you're a fan of the genre you've probably heard of this if not played it already, but for those of you out there that haven't, this really is a fantastic real-time strategy game and one well worth adding to the collection.
He's out of action. Our workshop is being targeted.
They say curiosity killed the cat. I killed the cat. Curiosity only brought her to me.
In Sound Mind is an atmospheric survival horror game set in a small town in the late 1990s. You'll play as therapist Dr. Desmond Wills as he attempts to uncover a mystery that surrounds himself and his patients. Taking place in 4 different locations or even worlds, there is an apartment building that acts as a central hub, and you start the game in its basement. Acting as a tutorial area, it's here where you learn the controls, the basic premise of the puzzles you'll be solving, and are exposed to the game's haunting figures that will be stalking your every move. Not so much gory horror and jump scares, and more subtle spooks in the environment is probably how I'd describe In Sound Mind's overall tone and approach to horror. And honestly, it's pretty effective in my opinion. It's the psychological stuff that gets me personally. Traversing through an area, for example, and then having to backtrack, you'll notice things in the environment have moved or even repositioned themselves. Notes are left around for you to find that don't just fluff up the story, they genuinely build intrigue and enhance the lore of the game, and more specifically the game's world. Finding cassette tapes of your patients and playing them in your office on the top floor of your apartment will allow you to enter their world and progress the main story. With each tape being a level essentially and differing drastically from one to the next, some were these tight-knit and tailored areas, while others had much more open and larger environments to explore in. As with any horror, there's always a threat looming over you, and each of the worlds provides their own unique enemy encounter. Whether you attempt to engage them or simply run away as fast as you can will be down to you. Primarily, it's an environmental puzzle game. You will explore areas looking for items and clues that allow you to solve the puzzle and progress, but the deeper you get, the more surreal the puzzles and the tools with which you need to solve them get, such as a magical mirror shard that allows you to see things not readily observable to the naked eye. The low budget and indie nature of it do hold it back in some areas, however. The combat, whether using melee or firearms, really isn't the best feeling and could have benefited with a bit more time to finesse. Nor is it the most arresting game to look at on the PS5, but its colour palette, level design and overall atmosphere more than make up for it in my opinion. If you like your survival horror games and haven't checked this out yet, you should definitely consider it next time you're game hunting. Record of Lodoss War is a 2D Metroidvania and action RPG developed by Playism and is based on a somewhat obscure 90s Japanese novel series featuring in-game protagonist and high elf Deedlit. I can't say I've ever read the novels this is based on, nor have I watched or read the numerous anime or manga spin-offs, but from what I have gleaned, this game's story is actually a prequel to a new novel series the author is currently working on. But if, like me, you'll be going into this with no prior knowledge of the franchise, then fear not, as it's very much welcoming to newcomers. In fact, when it comes to story, there really isn't that much to sink your teeth into in the first place, as this is way more gameplay focused. You'll be exploring a labyrinthian world map, backtracking as you discover items, magic and power-ups that allow you to reach previously inaccessible areas, fighting off a myriad of foes with a large selection of weapons, ranging from daggers, swords, axes and bows, the latter being often required to solve the game's many environmental puzzles. It's a classic formula that is often imitated, but due to the vast volume of games out there borrowing these tried and tested gameplay mechanics, few rarely stand out. And I'm not going to tell you that this revolutionises the subgenre or anything, but it does excel at what it sets out to do and provides a few unique twists along the way. As the story progresses, you'll discover two spirits that accompany Deedlit for the remainder of her journey, the wind spirit Sylph and the fire spirit Salamander, with each of the elemental spirits possessing different attributes that when equipped alter Deedlit's abilities. Swapping between them whenever you want, Sylph grants the ability to levitate, while equipping Salamander strengthens Deedlit's attack power. This use of elemental polarity is extensively utilised throughout the entirety of the game, reminding me a lot of Ikaruga and more recently Matterfall. Equipping Salamander makes Deedlit immune to fire damage, allowing her to walk through a wall of flame for example, while certain enemies and bosses in the game are invincible to fire for instance, forcing you to switch to Wind Spirit Sylph to deal any sort of damage. Additionally, each spirit can be leveled up to level 3 via Soul Screamers, which can be picked up after defeating enemies. This strengthens the effect of each spirit but are immediately leveled down once you take a hit. However, when fully leveled, they can also heal Deedlit. So there's a bit of strategy involved there, as what I tended to do was primarily use a level 1 Sylph to explore with, utilising its levitation skills, while I had a level 3 Salamander at the ready should I need to heal Deedlit after a tough enemy encounter. There's potions you can buy that heal too, amongst other things to discover, but they're finite, while this method was free if you play your cards right. It borrows a lot from Symphony of the Night, there's no doubt, but it does so lovingly, and at least in my book, comes pretty damn close to replicating that same sense of wonder through exploration and enjoyment through its combat and addictive gameplay loop. Well worth a slot in the collection if you ask me. Gamedec Definitive Edition is a point-and-click adventure RPG that will remind those who have played it of Disco Elysium, at least at first glance. You'll play as a Gamedec or Game Detective, which is a private eye for virtual worlds basically. You'll be called upon to solve various crimes and mysteries that occur in the full sensory immersive virtual reality games of the future. Gamedec Definitive Edition takes place in Warsaw in the 22nd century and features a beautifully realised cyberpunk universe with themes of film noir, tech noir and transhumanism. Creating your own protagonist at the start of the game with a customisable appearance and background, or choosing one of the many pre-made starting characters will influence the beginning number of points in each of the 4 personality categories. These points, which are earned through the choices you make in the game, can be spent on skill tree nodes, which in turn enable further dialogue options when conversing with the game's many NPCs. You'll want to select wisely too, as the choices you make in this game are permanent, as are the deductions you make during investigations. With its top-down isometric viewing angle and the many fantastical environments that you get to explore, I thought this game was genuinely stunning throughout and even jaw-dropping at times. Depending on the game the crime you're investigating is set in, environments change dramatically throughout. One moment you might be in a Japanese-themed samurai MMORPG, the next a farming sim set in the Wild West. The variety of the game's missions differ quite considerably too. Some are truly out-of-this-world, mind-bending conundrums to unravel, while others are more grounded and rooted in reality, focusing more on the human aspect. The smartest thing about the game, other than its initial premise, which I think would make an incredible prestige TV show, is the way the game reacts and remembers your choices. It adapts so well that it genuinely astonished me on more than a few occasions. And the fact that you have multiple starting characters to choose from, and the ability to create your own with its own unique background, I mean, they must have recorded so much dialogue for this game. And whatever it is working behind the scenes to make all this work so effortlessly and in such a small indie title is nothing short of impressive. There's a lot to read through with this game, as I'm sure you're already aware watching the footage, but if that stuff doesn't bother you and you like the idea of hopping between game worlds, solving crimes and piecing together clues, then I've got a feeling you're going to absolutely love this. Available on most digital storefronts, the PS5 did get a physical release in Europe, but I think that may well be the only region. So if you're based in the US and wanted this physically, do check your overseas vendors. Also, shout out to the proofreaders who missed the typo on the game's spine before going to print.
Hi, my name is... I'm your demon, provided by courtesy of the Pan Corporation.
Alright, so there you have it guys, the first of many PS5 Hidden Gems videos. I'm now much more actively seeking to build my PS5 library, so do let me know in the comments what hidden gems you guys are playing at the moment, so I can keep my eyes peeled when I'm next game hunting. If you appreciated the content, then have a think about hitting the like button, as it genuinely helps out quite a bit, and subscribe if you're new to the channel. I've got the next volume in my underrated PS3 game series coming out next, while I work on a pretty big PS4 related video. So until then guys, take care, be good, and game on.